You're listening to Operation Self Reset with Jake Naraki. Now it's time to reset your life. Hit it. Hello and welcome to Operation Self Reset. My name is Jake Naraki, and this is episode number 1, the first of many episodes to come down the pipe from OperationSelfReset.com. I thank you again for joining me. This is going to be an awesome podcast. I hope you get a lot of information, knowledge, and fun facts to share with your family at Christmas time, because there's nothing better than a fun fact, right? So let's dive into this. We're going to be doing things a little bit differently today because this is episode number 1 and you want to get to know me, Jake Naraki. Who am I? I know it's going to be a very deep, interesting conversation. I have a lot to share with you. But also we're going to talk about what is Operation Self Reset and what does it mean to me and what does it mean to you? Obviously, the reason you're listening to this podcast is not only to hear my amazing voice. I know I'm talented, thank you. But to get information that can change the way you think, act, and believe. And it's basically on the mindset of resetting things that have gone okay in your life. You know, things have gone good, some things have gone bad. And we want to change the bad into the good so we can have our lives full time just be great, you know? And that's what life is all about, because every single minute we spend on this on this earth is very, very precious. There is only so many ticks in our chest, aka your heart, and the craziest thing is, with all the technology, with all the iPhone apps and all that crazy stuff, there's no way to determine when that ticker is going to run out. So we really need to make the most out of this life, because gosh, it is amazing, isn't it? There has to be times in your life when you wake up, you go on a trip, you meet with new friends or old friends or whatever, your experiences, that sometimes you just go, wow, that was a great time. Wow, that was amazing. Wow, that scenery was beautiful. You know, there's times like that, just little slivers that makes us go, wow, I really appreciate life. And that's what everything is all about. Literally, in the end, that's what life is all about. So before I start talking about, how did I come up with the idea of Operation Self Reset, I want to give you kind of a little history on myself and where I came from and how my values got started. They all began with my father. He was a very motivating, inspiring kind of guy. You know, he was that guy that anytime things happened, events occurred, good or bad, he always had a quote to say or some line. And it was one of those things like you roll your eyes like, oh my God, please come on. That's ridiculous. But as time goes on, from when I was a young guy, I started gaining and started realizing a lot of those ideas and speeches and quotes really kind of benefited the outcome of where I am today. I'm really thankful now. At the time, I was like, this is so crazy and stupid, But my father, it was so funny when we would be traveling to hockey practice in the morning around 5:30 a.m. Ice time is very precious, so there's a lot of times you have to wake up early and get to the ice rink. And I was around like 6 or 7 years old. My dad would have these plastic binders with all these cassette tapes in them. He was the type of guy that would go to the seminars and buy all the products and listen and read and, improving yourself and all that stuff. And my dad would throw these tapes into the car and we would be listening to them on the way to hockey practice. And of course, as a young kid, you're not going to be listening to, how to make the most out of life and, inspire others and all that stuff. I was like, this is crazy stuff. But it's so funny looking back because I really now crave it. I'm really glad he put those tapes in, even though I absolutely hated them. And him and I did not talk on the car ride because he wanted to listen. And I didn't even want to know that tape was going on. But so as time progressed, I realized that a lot of those things I learned really helped me out in life. And when I turned 26 years old, before my birth date, I had a great outcome of my life. I, went to college. I got a great career. I bought a house. I got a girlfriend, a dog. I had a nice vehicle. Everything literally was going good. There was no real issues in my life at that time. I had some funny stories from work. I had some great friends and family. Literally everything surrounding me was, I don't want to say perfect, but it was great. I had a great time, So when I woke up on my 26th birthday, that's when the transformation started. I woke up and I was laying there alone. My girlfriend went to work and I was just kind of hanging out and I was laying in bed just thinking to myself, my gosh, I just feel sick. I feel horrible. I feel insecure and mad and angry and disappointed, even though I accomplished so much in my life. I bought some real estate properties. I managed, people, and it was I had a rewarding life, but internally I didn't feel rewarded. I didn't feel satisfied. So when my father called me to wish me happy birthday, I explained the feelings I was going through. I was like, Dad, I should be happy today. I feel like I should be, going out and partying and hanging with my friends and just enjoying my birthday, because that's, what you usually do on your birthday, right? You go on out, hang out, have a couple of cocktails, and just enjoy that day. And so I started talking to him about the feelings I was having, and he said, "You know what, Jake, you got to go and explore yourself." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "Well, those pains and that those issues and the insecurities that you are having right now, there's a reason for that. I don't know what the reason is, but you have to go out there and find it." I was like, "All right, well, how do I find it? Do I just go on the internet and I feel sick today, and start searching?" And he's like, "No, you got to go out there, start meeting people. You got to start traveling. You got to start putting yourself out there and doing experiences that you would never encounter otherwise. Go and meditating or yoga, or just try some things that are totally different, totally out there, that you might find the reasons for the feelings that you have right now." And I said, "Okay." I was like, "All right, I think I can do that, So that day I decided to write down a list of all the things that I wanted to accomplish and go and see and talk to and stuff like that. And throughout that time, I started finding my journey. It was so weird. It was like I set out for a goal and I didn't even know what the outcome was going to be. But throughout that time, I realized it. I realized that, are you guys ready for this? I want to be a motivational speaker. And it's so crazy. It was one of those things when it hit me, I started talking to all these people. I invented products. I'm going to talk about that more in a little bit here. And I started going up to these meetups and talking to others and stuff like that. And I just realized naturally, I started just talking about the positive things in life. And people would really kind of do that. How if you're whistle to your dog and how they tilt their head and they're looking at you and they're like, they don't know what you're trying to do, but it sounds interesting to them. That's the response I was getting from people. Now, maybe that's a crazy person look, this guy's loony, but it was one of those things when I realized that I was really affecting people around me. It was really powerful. I really found my journey, my passion. And it was so cool to feel that. So after I discovered myself, basically, I was thinking, man, that's cool. I want to be a motivational speaker. Yeah, high five to Jake. Woo. But then I was like, well, who am I to sit here and to stand up in front of people and present of, oh, does your life suck? Well, I have the answers for you. Go explore the world. No, they're not going to listen to a 28-year-old guy, which I am currently. And I started really analyzing this and really thinking, I was like, you know what, I have no platform, I have no foundation, and I'm trying to think of stories that have happened to me. And I have a boatload of stories that have happened to me that are hilarious, that I have that have reached my goals, that, that I want to share with you guys that will really, help you along your journey of changing the person you are to the person you want to be. So I started really thinking about this, and as time goes on, life still continues. That's always in the back of my head. And I'm always thinking, it'd be so cool to be a motivational speaker. It would be so cool to be a motivational speaker. As life continued, my girlfriend and I got married, and we started, doing improvements on the house, hanging out with friends, going on trips and all that stuff. And it came time to kind of deciding, are we going to plan for a family, And it was one of those things. I don't know if you're ever really ready to start a family, but it was one of those things that I was like, yeah, we can take a step in that direction. As we were starting to think about that, some of my real estate deals that I did earlier in life were not going out too well. As we all can agree, the economy was not doing too good. And currently, it's still doing okay. It's better than it was a couple of years ago. But the couple of my real estate deals that I have are through a bank that the mortgages were coming due, which means that I was going to have to pay the balance due on the buildings, which were two buildings on the east side of Milwaukee that combined value of, we'll say, around $500,000. So the bank basically said, you know what, Jake, your mortgages came due. How about you come on in and we'll talk about, maybe re-signing your mortgages or some other options for you. And I'm thinking, yeah, sounds good. Okay, great. So we scheduled an appointment. I put on my suit. I got all my paperwork, all my taxes, all this and all that. And I go in there with confidence, right? Because the confidence is key to any meeting. If you can present yourself well, they should respond well and you'll get a deal done, right? So I go in there with all my paperwork. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling positive, okay. So I sit on down, I give them all my paperwork and I, say, okay, well, obviously my mortgages came due. I don't personally have $500,000 in cash. Is there any way that you guys can extend my loan here a little bit? What's the deal? So the gentleman across from me, the loan officer, is looking over the paperwork and he goes, well, you know what, currently, Jake, I don't think we can renew you at this bank, but I would suggest you go on out to other banks and see what they have to offer. Maybe they can pull over these mortgages and you can start, having a better relationship with a different bank. And I said, okay, not a problem. Sure. Great. Sounds good. Shook his hand, leaving there feeling confident. Go home. I start calling all these other banks and telling them my situation and saying, hey, you know what? I have about 2 properties valued about $500,000. Do you think you guys could take over the mortgages? And they're like, well, do you have any money to bring to closing? And I was like, well, not really. I told them my situation. Like anybody out there listening, you have money, but you don't have, $50,000 to put down on buildings you already own, which to me is still boggles my mind, but whatever. So I call these banks, I call all the connections, I talk to everybody, I'm scanning for people, calling old friends, calling coworkers, all that crazy stuff. Well, so what happened? Nothing. There was no outcome. No bank said, yeah, come on in, Jake. So I go back to my bank where the mortgages are originally at. And I ask them again, you know what? I searched. There's just nobody out there that'll take me over. The economy is kind of crappy right now. What do you think about renewing me these mortgages on these buildings? And the gentleman across from me again is looking at the paperwork, head down, not really saying much. And I'm like, okay, kind of shaking in my boots a little bit. And he goes, well, Mr. Naraki, sorry to say, but either 2 things are going to happen. You're going to have to sell the buildings outright for loss because the loan to value on the buildings were just outrageous because the economy dropped, the housing market dropped, all that stuff. And he said, or you can foreclose on them and hand over the keys and this will be a very quick meeting. And I was like, what did you say? He's like, you can foreclose on them and just hand over the keys and they'll be it. I was like, oh, man, talk about a wave of emotion that comes over you. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there in America that have lost their personal homes, their personal cars and all this stuff. But for me, this was very emotional because I emotionally attached myself to these buildings. I worked my butt off. A lot of sweat equity. I worked hard to get them rented, all this stuff. I put my heart and passion into these buildings. So as I'm sitting there, basically like tears are rolling down my face. I'm red in the face. I'm flustered. I don't even know what to say. I'm just like, I'm mad at the situation. I'm mad at myself. I'm mad at this guy. And I can't really be mad at that guy because he's not in control. He's just the, pencil pusher. So I leave that meeting, shook his hand, still showed confidence on the outside, but I was a total wreck on the inside. And I just went home and I was devastated. I was like, oh my gosh, this is possibly the worst thing that could ever happen to me, right? So I'm trying to think of other ways to go about this. And I'm talking to other people and telling them, now obviously that they're going to foreclose on these buildings and things like that. And I don't have the money outright. And so the bank started calling me, the bank where I had the mortgages, and they start drilling me on where do I have my money? Do you have them in CDs? Do you have them in savings? Do you have it in cash? Where's the money? And it was like, whoa, I don't really have the money. So then they basically searched every document, every account, everything that I own and scanned for loose money to shake it out of me. And that's when I really started thinking, oh my gosh, there has to be other options out there for me. I don't want to lose these buildings. I worked my butt off on them, like I said. And so a friend of mine was like, you know what? You should talk to this lawyer. And I contacted this lawyer, and he's like, well, have you ever thought of bankruptcy? And I'm like, oh my God, bankruptcy. Jeez. No, I haven't. What is this? How does this work? So he described the whole thing to me, and we started proceeding towards that goal of bankruptcy. Well, luck be a lady. Soon after that kind of happened, my wife told me that we're pregnant. And I was like, yes, woo, we're having a baby. And then inside I was like, oh my God. So let's take out the picture here. So I have a decent job, but I'm going to lose my buildings possibly. So I'm going to be filing for bankruptcy, which is going to cost a lot of money because I have to pay off this lawyer. And then on top of it, you're going to throw a baby in my arms and say, now go. Wow, that was a moment in my life I will never forget. and my wife currently, awesome lady. I mean, so loving, so genuine. I mean, she wants to look, at life the same way I do, as very positive and loving and all that stuff. But my mind was totally in a different position than where she was thinking. So that's when I started kind of freaking out. I started going downhill, and I'm not talking like skiing, having fun downhill. I'm talking about like rolling downhill, got pushed backwards, head over heels. So I started thinking to myself, what are my options, and trying to figure this out. And when I started sitting down and talking to my friend Jordan, which I'm going to be interviewing here in a little bit, he goes, dude, like, this is your platform. This is your moment. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he goes, this is the moment that you have been looking for your whole life. The stars have aligned. The universe has spoke to you. You can now relate to so many more people on this level. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And it was like amazing when this hit me. Like, this is talking about looking at the positive out of disaster. This was my moment to say to myself, you know what? This is where I'm going to create Operation Self Reset, changing the person you are to the person you want to be. I'm obviously not in a good position right now. Obviously you know the whole story, and I know that there's other people out there that are in the exact same position as me. Obviously a little different. The circumstances might be changed, obviously, but I know that there's people that are searching and they need help in finding their motivation again, their inspiration of just getting out there and changing the way they think, act, and believe. Because for a while there, I was really down in the dumps. I wasn't eating good. I was eating bad. And this is super embarrassing. And someday I'm going to look back on this and laugh, because I don't even know why I'm saying this. I was so like a wreck with myself that I barely brushed my teeth. And I'm Mr. like teeth guy. I love good teeth, and I did not care. My mind was totally in the gutter, right? And so I recently went for a checkup, and the dentist is like, you have 5 cavities. And I was like, and I thought she said, did you have cavities when you were younger? And I was like, yeah, I had, a lot of cavities when I was younger. And she was like drilling me with all these questions. Oh, do you drink soda? And I was like, no, I'm a pretty healthy guy, whatever. And then the orthodontist came on in, and he's like, yeah, Jake, you have 5 cavities. I'm like, what? Whoa. What did you say? 5 cavities. And he showed me the picture, the x-ray of all these cavities in my mouth. And it's not that embarrassing, but it's just so funny. It's like, my God, like my whole life I've been trying to like be Mr. Teeth, make sure they're straight and organized, and they're clean and white and all that stuff. And then I have these 5, cavities, and it was like, that's when I realized, oh my God, I let go. Like, I just was not thinking about myself. My mind was totally in a different universe. You know what I mean? And I just had to share that little tidbit with you. So that's a fun fact about me. So let's hear a fun fact about you. Go. No, I'm kidding. And so it was just a really kind of like crazy process. And that's when I was like, oh my gosh, I got to start this. I got to bunker down, and I got to help others. And this is why I started Operation Self Reset. There's so many people that are struggling so bad, that are trying to stay on the positive side, no matter if it's hating your job or just hating your relationship, whoever you're with. It's about just changing yourself, your mindset, and believing in yourself. At the end of the day, when you go to bed, your mind is thinking, right? It doesn't matter if you read a book before you bed, or you listen to audiobook. You're thinking about, your goals, your futures, what you have to do in life, tomorrow, or waking up, or the things that are going on all around you. But have you really invested the time in yourself in thinking of, I need to change myself. I want to become a better person. No, not too many people do. And that's why Operation Self Reset has been started. To reset yourself, basically. There's been so many times in my life that I thought to myself, wow, I can't believe I always stay so positive and thinking of so good. I don't know why others have issues of trying to find their path in life. I found it, I nailed it. And then these events happen in my life. And that's when I thought to myself, I got to get out there and help others that are like me, and help myself. So throughout this process, we're going to be, I'm going to be putting things on the blog. I'm going to be doing podcast interviews with successful people that have invented products, business people, financial people, health gurus, all that crazy stuff. And not because I want to share the people that I know and puff out my chest and say, you got to listen to these people because these guys know everything. No, it's because I want to share their mindset. And why the mindset, you ask? Well, because the mind controls everything that goes on around you. If you're mentally tough and say that I'm determined to lose 10 pounds, well, you know what? It doesn't matter how strong you are. physically, if you're not mentally tough to push away from that cake or that that special dinner and leave some extra on their plate so you're not clearing it like a hog, you're not going to reach your goals. And that's why I want to invite people on this podcast to pick at their brain, figure out what makes them tick. How did they get past those self-confidence struggles in their life? How did they find the motivation to keep going day after day after day? You have to be honest with me when I say this, that there are days that you wake up and I wake up that you just don't want to do things. There are times you are just so checked out, you're just mentally burnt out. You don't want to deal with it. It doesn't matter how much coffee or tea or energy drinks you pound or whatever. Sometimes you just don't have it within you. But how is it that successful people find that motivation? That's why I want to ask them. That's why I want to interview these people and sit down and pick at their brain, because they have so much to offer. And it's so true. When I was exploring myself, the more people you talk to, the more people that you find out there that are like-minded yourself, you realize that, wow, you can learn so much from other people. We get so caught up in just hanging out with our usual group of friends. They say that the 5 closest people that surround you, you all make kind of the same amount of money. You all kind of have the same kind of goals. You all have the same interests and all that stuff. Your 5 closest people. Think about that for a second. Your 5 closest, friends or family or coworkers or whatever it is. You probably all make about the same amount of money. You probably all hang out at the regular spots and talk about the same things and have the same interests, right? But once you put yourself out there and you really start to realize that there's other people that want more in life like yourself or want to change their life like yourself, the world is unbelievable. It's untapped. There's so many cool people out there that we can learn so much. That's why when on the news or 60 Minutes, they interview only the most interesting people, right? They're not going to interview Joe the lowlife that just sits at home and plays video games. No, that's not interesting. What is he going to say? This is 60 Minutes. Joe, how do you feel when you wake up and continue to play video games for the next 23 hours and then you sleep 1 hour? I feel good. I wake up in the morning and then I drink some Mountain Dew and then I play video games. That's very interesting. Back to you guys. No, nobody cares about Joe, right? Everybody wants to know the successes, right? But nobody really talks about the failures. And when the people fail, how do they bring themselves back up to succeed again? It's so funny when you hear those stories about out there on entrepreneurs. They're like, I created this multi-million-dollar company and then we went bankrupt. But then I started a multi-million-dollar company again. It's like, how the heck do you do that? Like, what's going on? What am I missing here? What's the missing link? So that's why I want to interview these types of people, because they are just hustlers. They get out there and they do it. And they have the mindset of just energy and positive and tips that they can share with us to enlighten our lives together, me and you. It's just not about me. This podcast is not about Jake Naraki, about how I'm so cool and I'm bankrupt right now and I have a kid on the way and you need to listen to what I say because I know everything. No way. That's the point of this interview and getting out there and just talking to other people. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jake, you know what? I don't want to start a business. I'm not an entrepreneur. I don't have any inventions. Why should I continue to listen to this? I want to reset my life. I'm not here to get inspired to start a multi-million-dollar company. Why should I listen to these interviews? That's a very good question, and I'm going to answer that. The reasoning is because the more people we talk to about mindset, the more we can gain from one another and improve our own life, no matter what it is. If you want to lose weight, if you want to, keep your kids on a positive track and trying to find their journey, trying to find your own journey, changing jobs, it doesn't matter what challenge or thing that you want to change in your own personal life, we can learn so much. And the reason why I'm interviewing successful people, especially in the beginning here, is because I personally believe that the successful people have gone through some stuff that a lot of other people have not. They have challenged themselves in ways that average Joe, no offense if your name is Joe, has not. That's the reasoning why I'm asking these successful people. They have gone through the lack of self-confidence. They've gone through the family issues. They've gone through the financial tough times. There's so much that they have already gone through and trekked through a high and low emotional roller coaster, and we can gain that information without going through it. We're almost getting a cheat sheet on advancing ourselves without going through the personal failures. They do say, and everybody says, and I agree with this too, that sometimes sometimes you individually and I have to go through these failures before we can succeed. Very true. But sometimes it's nice to kind of get a heads up, right? I mean, it's just like if you're driving, you got a friend that drove an hour ahead of you, and he says, hey, FYI, there's a cop, 2 miles off this exit. That's a good to know information right there. So you're going to slow it down, proceed with caution, and carry through. That's why we can learn so much from one another. In summary here, I could keep talking and talking about mindset and talking about the things that I've learned so much from other people that have influenced myself. The thing I just want to let you guys know is that we're in this together. This is a community. This is not me just talking directly to you. Currently on my website, I have a voice box. It's on the left side of the page. You can click on it. You can record questions for me. I'll answer them for you. We'll almost have like a open conversation that will be delayed because it'll take a little bit for me to record the podcast, send it out, and then, we'll continue the conversations. But again, feel free to go to the website, operationselfreset.com. Follow me on Twitter, OP Self Reset at Twitter. Tweet to me, I'll tweet to you, and then we'll tweet together, because I think that's what it's made for, I guess, sure. And then also to go to YouTube. I have a channel there, Operation Self Reset, and feel free to contact me, support@operationselfreset.com. If you have any questions, concern, comments, good or bad, feel free to lay it on me. I'm a tough kid. I can handle this stuff. So again, thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen. Please subscribe to my newsletter, and also to please rate the podcast if you have a second. I know your time is very valuable, and I do greatly appreciate you guys tuning in and listening to this first podcast. Many more great podcasts to come, and we will talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much. Make it a great day.